That night, when my son's voice cut through the silence, "Get out, Mom. My fiancé doesn't want you here," yelled in front of 200 startled guests, I learned a devastating truth. Some words are etched into your memory, never to be forgotten and never to be truly forgiven. My name is Victoria. I am 57 years old, and this is the true story of how one highly anticipated wedding not only fractured my family beyond repair, but also, paradoxically, became the catalyst that saved my own life. For months, we had meticulously planned every detail. The ranch gardens were a vision, overflowing with white flowers. The band had been playing a lively tune since sundown. The tables were set with delicate linen cloths, each one painstakingly embroidered by my own hands during long, restless nights of insomnia. Truly, everything was prepared to be flawless. My son, Ethan, was marrying Olivia, that woman with the strikingly light eyes and the cool, almost calculating smile, the one who had materialized 2 years prior and systematically upended our entire world. I wore the deep royal blue dress my mother had worn on my wedding day, my hair carefully styled in an elegant, sophisticated bun. I intended to look impeccable, dignified, embodying the respectability appropriate for the groom's mother. The moment I stepped into the reception hall, Olivia's gaze locked onto me. She didn't acknowledge me directly. Instead, she leaned in and murmured something conspiratorially into Ethan's ear. Ethan immediately walked toward me with rapid, purposeful steps, his jaw visibly clenched. I knew that look. It was the same telltale expression he wore as a child when he was caught doing something wrong but desperately tried to hide his guilt. "Mom," he began, barely above a whisper. "Olivia says your dress is completely stealing the spotlight, that the blue is just too flashy." The comment landed like a physical blow to my chest, but I forced myself to take a slow, steady breath. It definitely has character. They settled into the living room while I returned to the kitchen to finish serving the meal. From there, I could hear their hushed, nervous conversation, punctuated by strained laughter and long, palpable silences. When I returned, carrying a pitcher of iced tea, Olivia was openly photographing the living room with her cell phone. "Do you like the decor?" I asked, attempting a friendly tone. "Oh yes. Yes. It's very authentic. I was just snapping a few shots to send to my cousin. She absolutely adores the vintage style. Asterisk vintage. Asterisk as if the entire accumulation of my life and family history was nothing more than a passing Pinterest trend. Dinner is ready," I announced. "Come join me in the dining room." We sat down at the long, dark wooden table. Ethan took his customary place on my right, with Olivia situated directly across from him. I served the plates with meticulous care, ensuring the presentation was faultless. "Please enjoy," I said simply, taking my seat. Ethan immediately tasted the meatloaf, closing his eyes in satisfied appreciation. "God, Mom, absolutely no one makes meatloaf like yours." I smiled genuinely. For the first time in days, a sliver of normalcy returned. "I'm so glad you still like it, my love." Olivia took a small, cautious bite. She chewed it slowly, then delicately set her fork down. "It's good. Although I can't tolerate too much seasoning. It tends to irritate my stomach." "It actually doesn't have very much seasoning at all," I informed her. "But I can quickly bring you something else if—" No, it's fine. I'll just eat what I can manage." Silence descended, broken only by the loud, rhythmic ticking of the antique wall clock, a sound I had never consciously registered until that moment. "Well, I finally began, breaking the tense quiet. I wanted you to come tonight because I owe you both an apology." Ethan immediately looked up at me. "They placed him in a nursing home and took possession of everything." As he told me this story, the man was weeping. He kept repeating, "It wasn't my son who betrayed me. It was my son who was manipulated. But the ultimate result is identical. I died alone, stripped of my home and my dignity." Victoria, that tragic story haunted me up until my final night. And I realized then that I needed to protect you, not necessarily from Ethan, but from whoever might have the power to alter Ethan's judgment. That is why I drafted this letter. That is why I meticulously structured the clauses of the will exactly as they stand. I did this not because I lack faith in our son, but because I have absolute faith in you. I trust that you will possess the clarity to distinguish between pure intentions and poison disguised as modern progress. If anyone pressures you to surrender those keys, if anyone attempts to make you feel old or incompetent, if anyone tries to convince you that the ranch is nothing but a burden, you must resist. Because this land is more than mere property. It is the very backbone of our family heritage. It is the sacred ground where our ancestors poured their blood and shared their dreams. It is the only place in the world where our history truly has roots. And you, my love, are the sole guardian of that history. Do not let anyone, not even our own son, convince you that you are merely an obstacle. You are the gateway, and you alone decide who is permitted entry. I love you. I have always loved you. And wherever I am now, I will continue to watch over you. Protect the keys. Protect the land. Protect yourself. Yours forever, Robert. When I finally finished reading, tears were streaming down my face, dampening the fragile paper. Mr. Miller placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Your husband was an exceptionally wise man, Victoria. He already knew. He knew this moment was coming. He might not have known the exact details, but he understood the potential. And I was simply the fool who took far too long to understand it. I hugged him close. My boy. My man. My son. It's never too late to learn, my love. Today, as I write this narrative in my mind, sitting on the same old porch where I have spent half my life, I see Robert playing contentedly with the chickens. I see Ethan diligently repairing the fence by the corral. I see the trees my grandfather personally planted. I see the adobe walls my great-grandfather built with his own hands. And I understand something that took me 62 years to realize. Years to truly understand. Life's ultimate test isn't measured in wins or losses. It is about safeguarding what is precious, even if that protection demands the ultimate sacrifice. It requires the wisdom to discern when to stand firm and resist, and when the moment calls for gentle release. Crucially, I learned that genuine love never makes demands. It gives freely, yet it always defines and maintains healthy boundaries. People labeled me selfish, stubborn, a bitter old woman hopelessly stuck in the past. Perhaps those accusers were right about some superficial traits, but they profoundly misunderstood the core of my struggle. I was never dwelling on what was lost. Rather, I was fiercely defending the future. I fought for the future of that little child now playing freely on this ancestral land. I fought for the future of my son, who is finally learning what it means to be a principled man. I fought for the future of every generation that will follow me here. The heavy keys hanging around my neck are no longer simple metal and rust. They are tangible symbols of history itself. They represent relentless resistance. They serve as undeniable proof that a single woman, armed with nothing but her unwavering dignity, can successfully defend an entire world from encroachment. Olivia ultimately secured her wealthy businessman, her sprawling mansion, and her outwardly perfect life. It's fine, son, I replied calmly. I'll change if you need me to. I brought another dress in the car. No, Mom. His voice instantly hardened, losing all pretense of gentleness. It's better if you just leave. What? Olivia is incredibly nervous. She claims your presence makes her tense. That you've always judged her. The massive hall was packed. The music swelled, and the guests chattered away, completely oblivious to the cruel drama unfolding barely 10 feet from the head table. Ethan, I am your mother. I practically organized this entire wedding. I paid for half of all this expense. And you think that gives you the right to ruin my wife's day? He roared. His voice cut through the music. The entire hall fell into a shocking silence. 200 pairs of eyes instantly fixed on us. Then he delivered the final blow, shouting it loud and clear for everyone to hear. Get out, Mom. My fiancé does not want you here. I felt a profound structure collapse inside my core. I didn't cry. I didn't scream back. I simply nodded my head once, quietly picked up my purse, and walked resolutely toward the exit. No one attempted to stop me. No one followed. I got into my car and drove straight back to the ranch. Hanging around my neck, as they always were the heavy keys, The very keys my father had entrusted to me before he died, along with the land, the house, and the entire legacy of 4 preceding generations. These were the exact keys Ethan had been coveting ever since his engagement to Olivia. I arrived home, removed the royal blue dress, folded it with meticulous care, and placed it inside the closet. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. But the following day, when the phone rang and I saw his name illuminated on the screen, a deep, unsettling intuition told me that everything was about to irrevocably change. I took a long, steadying breath and answered the call. It often happens that we place far too much trust in the wrong people. Olivia did too, her expression shifting to sudden interest. I was unfair to both of you, regarding the wedding and regarding everything really. The words sounded hollow, mechanical, rehearsed until they were meaningless. This is your life now, your marriage, and I absolutely must learn to respect that decision. Olivia offered her first genuine smile of the evening. Thank you, Victoria. That means a great deal to me. To us. Ethan reached across the table and grasped my hand. Mom, I know I went too far as well. I shouldn't have yelled at you, especially not in front of everyone. It's over now, son. The most important thing is simply to move forward. Exactly, Olivia swiftly interjected. Moving forward. New beginnings. We clinked our glasses of iced tea, toasting like a perfectly normal, functional family, as if the dramatic confrontation of 3 nights prior had never occurred. After we finished the main course, while I was serving the warm apple cobbler, Olivia stood up. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom quickly. Of course, it's the second door on the left, I replied. She left the room. Ethan and I were finally alone at the table. Mom, thank you for doing this. I know it couldn't have been easy. Nothing involving you is ever easy, my love, but you are always worth the effort. He smiled back. My old boy, genuinely present in that moment. Olivia is a good woman, Mom. You two just need to make the effort to get to know each other better. I know. And I promise I'm going to try. Truly. We chatted for a while longer. He detailed their honeymoon in San Diego, their remodeling plans for the city apartment, and Olivia's new, high-powered job at a transnational corporation. Everything he described sounded idyllic. Almost too perfect. Olivia was taking an unusually long time to come back. Is your wife all right? I finally inquired. She must just be touching up her makeup. You know how women are, he dismissed lightly. That is why he protected you so fiercely. I quickly dried my tears. Mr. Miller, what action can I take? Legally, you're thoroughly protected. The will is unambiguous. Ethan cannot sell, lease, or make any structural modifications to the property without your explicit, notarized consent. But, he paused deliberately, the law protects property, Victoria. It does not protect hearts. What exactly do you mean by that? I mean they can exert tremendous pressure on you, manipulate your emotions, and attempt to induce overwhelming guilt. They may even try to have you declared legally unfit to make decisions. I have witnessed these tactics firsthand. A horrifying chill spread through me. They can actually do that? They can attempt to. If they manage to find a doctor willing to certify that you suffer from dementia, cognitive impairment, or any condition that renders you incompetent, they could petition the court for legal guardianship over you. But I am perfectly fine. You know I am. I know, Victoria. But in the hands of the right and scrupulous lawyers, working with the right doctors. He didn't need to finish the dreadful sentence. I understood completely. What steps should I take now? First, safeguard this letter immediately. Put it in a bank safe deposit box, or with someone you implicitly trust, not here in the house. Second, schedule an urgent appointment with your physician. Request a comprehensive physical and mental examination. You need a written certification stating that you are in full possession of your faculties. Third, he looked at me with profound sadness. Prepare yourself for the absolute worst. The worst? For Ethan to completely side with his wife. He would never do that. Victoria, I have been a family lawyer for 4 decades, and I can share one hard lesson I've learned. When a man is forced to choose between his mother and his bed, he almost invariably chooses the bed. But I possess something infinitely more valuable, something she will never attain, inner peace. It is the peace of knowing I chose the right path, that I refused to sell my integrity, and that I never betrayed the legacy of those who came before or the promise of those who will come after. That peace, that profound inner quiet, is utterly priceless. If sharing my journey helps even one other woman truly open her eyes, establish necessary boundaries, and fiercely defend what rightfully belongs to her, regardless of the criticism or condemnation she faces, then every struggle was worthwhile. The shouting matches, the hidden tears, the long, desolate years of loneliness, all of it. Because, inevitably, life always finds a way to deliver true justice. Not through acts of revenge or shouting matches, but through the patient passage of time, the undeniable power of truth, and the natural consequences that arrive precisely when they are least expected. Olivia finally discovered that wealth cannot purchase authentic love. Ethan realized that certain values are infinitely more valuable than any inheritance. And as for me, I learned the deepest lesson of all, that releasing someone you love does not signify the end of that love. Rather, it means loving them profoundly enough to step back and allow them to experience failure and consequences. This painful separation allows them to learn, to mature, and to ultimately grow, even when witnessing their struggle feels like it is tearing you apart. My name is Victoria. I am 62 years old, and this has been the honest account of how I risked losing my son in the short term, only to save both our souls in the long run. The keys remain here with me. They will be held safely until the precise moment of transition arrives. I now grasp something I failed to understand 5 years ago. The right moment for handing them over is not determined by my timing. It is determined by when my son is truly ready and deserving to receive them. Have you ever been profoundly disappointed by someone you love dearly? Share your story in the comments below. I genuinely want to read it. Mom. His voice on the phone sounded hollow and exhausted. Can you come to the ranch? We need to talk. I ended the call without uttering a single word in reply. I sat down in the kitchen, gripping a cup of coffee, the same dark French roast I used to brew for Ethan when he was just a boy, waking up early to help me tend to the horses. That was the old reality. Before Olivia arrived, my son and I were an unbreakable team. After his father passed away 15 years ago, it had only been the two of us here, managing the ranch. We had learned not just to live, but to survive, side by side. Ethan was only 12 years old when I became a widow. He was a quiet, earnest boy with hands that seemed too large for his age and sad, watchful eyes, always trying valiantly to be strong for me. Mom, I can fix the fence, he would insist, lugging tools that were heavier than he was. No, my love, you're still a child. Not anymore, Mom. I'm the man of the house now. And he genuinely tried. God knows how hard he attempted to live up to that declaration. We truly grew up together on this vast land. He learned the harsh realities of herding cattle, the mechanics of repairing bulky tractors, and even how to negotiate with the suppliers during the times I simply lacked the emotional strength to do it myself. He held me close when I cried at night, when the missing presence of his father was so overwhelming that I felt I couldn't draw a breath. Everything is going to be all right, Mom. I promise. And he kept that promise. He matured into a strong, responsible man right here, nestled within these sturdy adobe walls, shaded by the massive oak trees my grandfather had lovingly planted. When he finished his college studies in the city, he returned immediately. Mom, my place is here with you on the ranch. I stood up from the table. I'm going to see if she needs anything. I walked down the quiet hallway. The bathroom door was ajar. It was empty. Olivia? Silence. I continued moving down the hall. I passed my late husband's study. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open gently. Olivia was inside, her back to me, her phone held high. She was meticulously taking pictures of the desk, of the closed drawers, and of the documents that lay scattered on the tabletop. Olivia. She spun around, clearly startled. Her face drained of color for a brief second, but she instantly composed herself. Oh, Victoria, you terrified me. She laughed, a forced, nervous sound. I'm so sorry. I just saw this room and it looked so fascinating. All these old things. Is this your husband's study? It was. Of course. Sorry. She hastily dropped her phone into her purse. It has really lovely things. I simply adore vintage. There was that dismissive word again. This room is usually kept locked. The door was open, and I thought I might just take a quick peek inside. Sorry. Yes. Don't worry about it. Let's head back to Ethan. We returned to the dining room. Olivia settled back down as if nothing untoward had happened, smiling and seemingly relaxed, but I was now tense and alert. We finished the apple cobbler with strained, superficial conversation. Olivia complimented the house's character 3 more times. Ethan, meanwhile, discussed his maintenance ideas. Maybe we should hire someone to repaint the exterior walls, Mom. They look a little neglected. They're that color because it's a special lime wash paint, I corrected him gently. That is how it was traditionally done. But we could modernize it, he pressed. Give it a more contemporary look. Asterisk contemporary, modern, vintage. Asterisk all words that ultimately carried the same underlying message. Asterisk your life is obsolete. They finally departed at 10 o'clock. Thanks for dinner, Mom. It was truly delicious. Come whenever you wish. His words struck me with the force of a physical impact, yet deep down, I knew he spoke the brutal truth. Mr. Miller departed close to midnight. I remained alone in the living room, gripping my husband's letter. I reread it 3 additional times. With each reading, his voice resonated more clearly in my mind. Asterisk you are the guardian of that history. Don't let anyone convince you that you are an obstacle. You are the door. Asterisk I stood up and walked steadily into the study. I opened the hidden safe, concealed behind the heavy portrait of my father. I stored the letter inside, alongside the original property deeds. I locked it securely. I touched the keys hanging on my neck and made a fierce resolve. If they demanded a war, they were certainly going to get one. But it wouldn't be waged with shouting, drama, or tearful scenes. It would be fought with silence, patience, and the same quiet, tenacious strength my husband taught me when we first began caring for this land side by side. At 7 o'clock the following morning, I called my primary care physician, requesting an urgent appointment for every possible physical and cognitive test. At 8 o'clock, I called the bank and scheduled a meeting to open a safety deposit box. At 9 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Mom. Good morning, son. Olivia told me about what happened yesterday. That you were rude to her. That you insulted her. I didn't insult anyone. I merely clarified that the ranch is not for sale. No one ever suggested it was for sale. We only wanted to propose an idea to you, a legitimate family business venture. Ethan, do you honestly believe I need to launch a business at my age? Do you truly think I want to convert the home where you grew up into a hotel? You are not the sole decision maker, Mom. I am an owner of this property as well. Not of the legacy. That makes absolutely no sense. Perhaps not to you, but it makes perfect sense to me. And on that day, that truly significant day, I will finally be able to rest in complete peace, secure in the knowledge that this land, the ground that witnessed my birth, absorbed my tears, and sustained my resistance, will be entrusted to the right hands. Thank you sincerely for listening until the very end. If this story resonated within your heart, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. Sometimes, a narrative like this possesses the power to profoundly shift an entire day's perspective. God bless you, and until next time. Hearing those words brought me immeasurable joy. We worked seamlessly side by side. I managed the complex accounts, and he took meticulous care of the livestock. In the evenings, we would invariably sit together on the porch to watch the blazing sunset, always accompanied by coffee and a donut. You know, Mom, he would often say, his eyes distant with future plans. One day my own children are going to grow up right here, exactly like I did. They'll run through these same sun-baked yards. They'll learn to ride the very same horses. I truly hope so, my love. I hope you find a woman who cherishes this land as fiercely as we do. He would beam. I'm going to find her. I promise you that. But, tragically, that is not how events unfolded. He met Olivia during a business meeting at a swanky downtown New York bar. She was a strikingly successful, aggressively modern business administrator. She wore stilettos and intoxicatingly expensive perfumes. Her conversation revolved exclusively around high-stakes investments and projected financial returns. The first time Ethan brought her out to the ranch, I witnessed a momentary, but unmistakable, flicker of disappointment across her face. "You live here?" she questioned, her eyes sweeping over the aged adobe walls, the dark, inherited wood furniture, and the faded black and white photographs of my grandparents. "We live here," Ethan quickly corrected her, a defensive note in his voice. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Olivia managed to smile, but her critical eyes betrayed a completely different sentiment. From that initial visit, everything shifted. Ethan began coming home later and later. He stopped joining me on the porch for our sacred sunset ritual. He started discussing the necessity of selling off some cattle, about extensive modernization, and even suggested transforming the cherished ranch into a high-end event venue. "Mom, Olivia has genuinely good ideas. We could stand to earn a tremendous amount of money. This is always your home." Olivia gave me a stiff, calculated hug. "Thank you for giving us this second chance, Victoria. It means a lot." I watched their truck drive away slowly up the dirt road. The taillights vanished among the tall trees. I closed the front door and walked immediately toward the study. On the wooden desk, the specific set of documents my husband had so carefully organized had been slightly, almost imperceptibly, shifted. But I knew every single detail of that space, every shadow, every scent. Someone had definitely gone through these things. I pulled open the main drawer. The legal documents were all present, the property deeds, the will, the land titles. Everything appeared to be in order. Yet, something crucial was missing. The yellow envelope. This was the envelope containing an important letter my husband had entrusted to me, a letter he made me swear I would only open if anyone ever attempted to seize the ranch. I systematically searched every drawer, checked behind every book on the shelves. It was gone. A sudden, deep chill traced its way down my spine. I instinctively clutched the heavy keys resting against my chest. For the first time, I realized my fears were not paranoia. I was under surveillance. I was being observed, analyzed, and evaluated, measured to determine just how long I would remain an inconvenience to someone else's carefully laid plans. Sleep was impossible that night. I sat silently in the darkened study, gazing out the window, watching the shadows shift. I calculated how much precious time I had left before they made their move to strip everything away from me. As I recount this story, I pause to wonder where in the world you, the listener, might be. Please write the name of your city in the comments. The next morning, with grim determination, I began a methodical search of the entire house for that missing yellow envelope. Silence stretched between us, followed by his agitated breathing on the line. "Olivia says you are acting selfishly, that you are rigidly clinging to the past, and that you need help." "Help?" "Yes, Mom. Professional help. Maybe you should speak to a therapist or a doctor to help you learn to let go." There it was. The exact scenario Mr. Miller had warned me about. Professional help. Doctor. Mental incompetence. Ethan, do you actually think I'm losing my mind? No, Mom. But I think you're desperately lonely. That you've become trapped in that house, surrounded by ghosts and memories. And that is simply not healthy. I am perfectly healthy. Then prove it. Come and live with us for a period of time. Leave the ranch. Get away from there. And the keys, leave the keys with the other valuable items for safekeeping. Just so no one can gain entry while you are away. I closed my eyes, drawing a slow, deliberate breath. I counted to 10. No, Ethan. No. I am not abandoning my house. I am not relinquishing the keys. And I refuse to continue arguing this point with you. Then I honestly don't know what else to do, Mom. I truly don't know how I can help you anymore. I do not need your help, son. I need your respect. I cannot respect a decision that is obviously causing you pain. The only decision that is causing me pain is yours, Ethan. The choice you made to prioritize a woman you barely know over the mother who raised you. You are starting that again. It is always the same pattern with you. Either I am entirely with you, or I am totally against you. No, Ethan. The choice is simpler. Either you are with me, or you are siding with someone who intends to strip me of everything I possess. He hung up abruptly. The heavy silence that followed the disconnected call was infinitely worse than the heated shouting. I sat motionless in the kitchen for hours. I did not cry. There were simply no more tears left for this ordeal. This isn't just a business, Ethan. This is fundamentally our home. It's both, Mom. And we have to be realistic about our assets. That single word, realistic, was a jarring term he had never, ever used before. The ranch keys felt heavy on my neck, the same keys my father had pressed into my hand just before his death, tears streaming from his eyes. Victoria, this land is your sacred inheritance. Don't let anyone take it from you, not even your own son. At the time, I hadn't grasped the gravity of his warning. Now, with crushing clarity, I finally did. The phone rang once more. It was Ethan calling again. This time, I lifted the receiver. As I recount this painful story, I often wonder where in the world you might be listening to me right now. Please write the name of your city in the comments. Mom, please. I need the ranch keys. His voice was disturbingly different, colder, precisely as if he were reciting a script dictated by someone else. What exactly do you need them for, Ethan? A pregnant silence followed on the line. I could hear muffled voices in the background. A distinct female voice. Olivia. Olivia, and I want to implement some changes. You know, modernize things a little. Perhaps remodel the main living room. Replace the old, worn furniture. Those old pieces of furniture were crafted by your great-grandfather's own hands. Mom, please don't start this. We had enough drama yesterday. Drama? I felt my composure cracking. You forcibly threw me out of your wedding reception, and I am the one who is dramatic? You decided to wear that dress knowing that, Ethan, that dress belonged to your grandmother. It was the exact gown she wore when she married your grandfather right here, on this very ranch you now intend to remodel. Another silence followed, heavier and more telling than the first. Mom, things change. Traditions change. Olivia is right. We simply cannot live stuck in the past. Olivia is right. I went through every closet, every forgotten box stored in the dusty attic, and every obscure corner where my husband might have chosen to conceal it. I found absolutely nothing. I was on the verge of admitting defeat when the doorbell chimed. Standing there was Mr. Miller, our longtime family attorney, a man in his 70s, distinguished by his neat white mustache and an impeccable suit that invariably carried the reassuring sense of fine pipe tobacco and crisp cologne. Mrs. Victoria, good morning. May I come in? Mr. Miller, what an unexpected surprise. Of course, please come in. We moved into the living room. I prepared coffee for him, and he settled onto the couch, adopting that distinct gravity only lawyers possess when they are about to deliver unpleasant news. Victoria, I came here because I received a very strange telephone call yesterday. Strange? From your daughter-in-law, Olivia? My stomach instantly knotted tight. Olivia called you? Yes. She informed me that you had asked her to contact me, claiming you wished to review your husband's will and had doubts regarding the property distribution. I never asked her to do such a thing. Mr. Miller nodded slowly. I suspected as much. That is precisely why I am here. Victoria, that young woman asked me some extremely specific questions. She wanted to know if Ethan's 50% share was transferable, if he had the right to sell his portion without your consent, and specifically, if any clause existed that granted you absolute control over the ranch. And what was your response? I told her that all such information is highly confidential, and I could only discuss it with you, or with your son in your presence. She was quite displeased by my refusal. He took a thoughtful sip of his coffee cup. Victoria, is there something going on that I need to be aware of? I felt only a profound, chilling emptiness, similar to the grief I felt when my husband died, when I first understood I was truly alone in the world. But this time, the desolation was different. This time, I wasn't merely a widow. I had become orphaned of my own son. And that particular wound hurt in a way I had never conceived possible. That same afternoon, I went straight to the bank. I opened the safe deposit box and carefully stored copies of all the critical documents, the deeds, the will, and my husband's letter. The following day, I visited the doctor. I underwent comprehensive blood work, cognitive tests, and memory examinations. Mrs. Victoria, you are in excellent health, the doctor informed me a week later. Physically and mentally, in fact, you possess better health markers than many individuals 20 years your junior. Could you provide that assessment to me in writing? Of course. I placed the official medical certificate securely with the other legal documents, and then I waited. I knew instinctively this battle was far from finished. I knew Olivia would not concede defeat easily. And I knew that my son, my boy, my Ethan, was now trapped somewhere inaccessible to me. The keys rested against my neck. And for the first time in my life, I felt their weight wasn't just protection. It was the crushing weight of utter loneliness. I still sometimes question whether I made the right choice by holding my ground so firmly. And if you were in my position, what decision would you have made? 3 weeks slipped by without a single word from Ethan. 3 weeks during which my phone remained eerily silent. 3 weeks where every sound on the long, winding road caused me to rush to the window, desperately hoping to see his familiar truck. But it never appeared. Until that Thursday afternoon. I was in the garden, meticulously pruning the rose bushes my mother had planted 4 decades earlier, when I heard the approaching engines. Those 3 damning words had become the defining mantra of my son ever since she entered his life. When exactly are you coming home? I asked, desperately attempting to steer the conversation elsewhere. That's the core issue, Mom. Olivia and I aren't going to be living there anymore. We're staying in the city apartment. It's far more practical for her career. I felt a sudden, sharp vacuum in my chest, as if all the air had been violently expelled from my lungs. But you told me you were going to raise your children here, that this ranch was your life, your home. And it still is. But I also need to actively build my own life now with my wife. My wife. He pronounced the title not with genuine affection, but with the cold finality of someone signing a legally binding contract. So, why do you need the keys then? Because legally, it's also my house, Mom. My father explicitly left it to me in his will. 50% for you, 50% for me. There it was. The raw, calculated truth. The fracture had officially begun. While his father had indeed bequeathed him half of the physical property, the keys, the operational control, and the right of administration, those had been explicitly left to me. The will contained a very specific clause. Victoria will decide the future of the ranch for as long as she retains life and mental capacity. Ethan will only receive his share when she deems it appropriate. My husband knew me deeply. He knew I would never entertain the idea of selling. He knew I would protect this irreplaceable land, even if it meant protecting it from our own son. The keys stay with me, Ethan. Mom, don't be so childish. We just want to implement a few minor changes. We could potentially rent the ranch out for exclusive events, weddings, quinceañeras. We could generate substantial extra income, transforming our home into a viable business venture. It's a genuine opportunity. Olivia has already contacted an architect. I proceeded to tell him everything. The rushed wedding, the argument, the tense dinner, the moved photos in the study, and, most crucially, the missing envelope. Mr. Miller listened without interruption, his brow deeply furrowed in concentration. That envelope you mentioned, was that the one holding your husband's special letter? Yes. Do you know what the contents were? I know your husband requested me to draft a certain document years ago, shortly before his death, but he never disclosed its contents. He merely instructed me to legally certify his signature and seal it within that distinctive yellow envelope. Do you have a copy? No. Your husband was emphatically clear. Only one original copy was to be in your keeping. He told me it was a form of protection and insurance. Insurance against what? Mr. Miller met my gaze with those tired eyes of a lawyer who has witnessed too many heartbreaking family disputes. Against exactly this, I suppose. Against the day someone attempts to seize what rightfully belongs to you. He left about half an hour later, but not before issuing a somber warning. Victoria, please be cautious. I have seen countless cases like this. When significant money and property are at stake, people change. Even family members. Ethan is not like that. Ethan, perhaps not. But Olivia. I offered no reply. I simply had no rebuttal to give him. That afternoon, I received a text message from Ethan. Mom, Olivia wants to invite you to lunch tomorrow, just the two of you, so you can get to know each other better. What do you say? Instinctively, my gut screamed no. But a far stronger, more strategic urge told me I absolutely needed to understand what plotting was underway. Of course. What time? At 2 o'clock. At the ranch restaurant. Ironic, isn't it? I'll be there. The following day, I dressed with meticulous attention. Black trousers, a crisp white blouse, and a simple jacket. The keys were tucked securely beneath my blouse, as always. Not just one truck, but two, accompanied by a car. I pulled off my gardening gloves and wiped the perspiration from my brow. Ethan emerged from the first truck, Olivia from the car, and two sharp-looking men carrying briefcases stepped out of the second truck. Lawyers, clearly. My stomach instantly clenched into a hard knot. Ethan, what is the meaning of this? He refused to meet my gaze. He approached me with stiff, mechanical strides, like a soldier strictly following commands. Mom, we need to talk inside. Who exactly are these men? They are attorneys Williams and Smith. They have come to assist us in resolving the situation. What situation? Olivia glided forward, smiling brightly, as if she were arriving at a casual social gathering. Victoria, there is no need to be nervous. We simply want to clarify a few legal matters. Nothing serious at all. I made no move to invite them into the house. Mom, please, Ethan said, his voice flat and weary. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. A cold dread ran through my veins at the sound of his tired acceptance. Nevertheless, I opened the front door. We all moved into the living room. The two lawyers took seats on the sofa. Olivia settled confidently into the main armchair. Ethan remained standing near the window, staring blankly outside as if wishing to be anywhere but there. I positioned myself opposite them, the keys beneath my blouse digging into my chest. Attorney Williams, a precise man in a gray suit and frameless glasses, opened his briefcase. Mrs. Victoria, good morning. I am Attorney Williams, the legal representative for my client, Mr. Ethan Robert Taylor. We're here today because my client intends to formally exercise his rights as co-owner of this ranch. He is already well aware of his rights and his limitations. Precisely. That is why we are here. He pulled out some important documents. We have carefully reviewed your late husband's will. We could expand the garden areas, construct a brand new patio, even install a large, air-conditioned ballroom. No, Ethan. This house is not for sale. It is not an available commercial property. It is not a remodeling project. But it's mine too. That raw, uncontrolled scream, that aggressive tone, it was the voice of a complete stranger. Your father left you this land with the intention that you would protect it, not exploit it. My father is dead, Mom. He has been dead for 15 years. And you persist in living as if he's simply going to walk back through that door tomorrow. I became mute. His words sliced through me with the precision of sharp knives. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, I interjected. My voice emerged calm. Dangerously calm. And that's fine. You are correct. Your father is gone. And I have indeed spent all these years meticulously safeguarding everything he loved, everything he built, and everything he dreamed for you, Ethan. But perhaps you are right. Perhaps it is past time for everyone here to finally live their own separate lives. What exactly do you mean by that? I mean that the keys will remain with me, that the ranch remains my sole responsibility, and that you are free to build the life you truly desire somewhere else entirely. Are you actually kicking us out? No, I am simply giving you what you requested. Your space. Your independence. Your own life. I heard Olivia's voice in the background, sharp and demanding, clearly annoyed. Ethan responded to her in a hushed tone. Mom, Olivia says you're just being selfish, that you're clinging stubbornly to material things. That, Ethan, I cut him off sharply. Yesterday, when you screamed at me in front of all those guests, when you demanded I leave your wedding, there was an unknown woman seated near me. Before I walked out, she took my hand and whispered something. Do you know what she said? What did she say? I arrived at the restaurant 5 minutes early. Olivia was already seated at a prominent table by the window, casually holding her phone, a glass of white wine already waiting before her. She exuded an aura of total relaxation and confidence, like a seasoned chess player who has already calculated the final moves of the match. "Victoria, how wonderfully punctual. Please sit down." I took my seat and ordered plain iced water. "Thank you for coming," Olivia said, setting her phone aside. "I know things got off to a difficult start between us, and I sincerely want to rectify that." "Me too." "Good. Because look, Victoria, I want you to understand I am not your enemy. I know you might think I arrived to steal your son away, but that's genuinely not the case. I came to love him, and loving him includes respecting his family." She sounded perfectly sincere, almost convincing. "I am very glad to hear that. And that is why I want to be completely honest with you now." She leaned in conspiratorially. "Ethan is incredibly stressed. He feels desperately trapped between you and me. And that pressure is simply not fair to him. I have never once asked him to choose sides. I know, but he feels compelled to, especially concerning the ranch issue." There it was. The moment the mask slipped. The true purpose of this carefully orchestrated lunch, the ranch issue. "Victoria, we both recognize that property is immense, beautiful, and absolutely brimming with potential. But it is also a tremendous burden. The cost of maintaining it drains money, time, and immense energy. Ethan tells me you insist on handling everything alone, that you reject help, and that you are clinging tightly to something that is perhaps already far too vast for you to manage." I took a long, steadying breath. I counted silently to 5 before answering. "The ranch is my home, Olivia. It is not a burden. Of course, it is your home. Nobody is suggesting otherwise. While it is certainly true that you possess administrative control over the property, there is a specific clause that permits the co-owner, my client, Mr. Ethan, to request a division of assets if he believes that the current administration is causing the estate's value to deteriorate." "Deteriorating?" I scoffed. "This ranch is in perfect condition. Physically, perhaps," he conceded, "but economically." He smoothly placed the stack of papers on the antique table. "It is rapidly losing value," he stated plainly. "It generates virtually no income. It has no productive use. And according to the financial calculations we have prepared, the extensive maintenance costs significantly exceed any potential benefit." "This is my home," I insisted, "not a business venture." "Legally, ma'am, it is both," the lawyer countered. "It is a private property that carries substantial commercial value, and my client has every right to request that this value be proactively protected." I glanced at Ethan. He remained standing with his back rigidly facing me, staring out the window, refusing to meet my eyes. "Ethan, did you ask for this?" He offered no reply. Olivia smoothly stepped in to answer for him. "Victoria, Ethan only wants what's best for everyone, especially you. Just look at this place. It's huge, it's old, and it is notoriously difficult to maintain. You are completely alone here. What happens if you get sick? If you fall, if something happens to you and no one realizes it until days later? I have a phone. I have neighbors. You are 57 years old, Victoria," she cut in sharply. "Even if you are perfectly healthy now, how many more years will you realistically be able to handle this massive responsibility? 5 years? 10? And then what? Are you simply going to let this valuable property deteriorate until it's virtually worthless?" "It is worth far more than you can possibly understand," I retorted fiercely. "Not everything valuable can be measured in money." She said, "Ma'am, when a son is forced to choose between his mother and his wife, he has already made his choice, and you must respect that choice. But you must also respect yourself." "Mom, this isn't some petty competition between you and Olivia." "No, my love, it absolutely is not, because in a competition, both parties actively want to win. And I simply don't want to compete anymore. All I crave now is peace. And the keys." I touched the sturdy chain where they rested on my chest. They felt cold, heavy, weighted by generations of history. "The keys will remain exactly where they have always been, with me, until the exact right moment to hand them over arrives." "And when precisely will that moment be?" "When you finally possess a heart that genuinely deserves them." I disconnected the call before he had a chance to formulate a reply. I sat motionless in the kitchen for hours. The coffee grew completely cold in the ceramic mug. The long afternoon shadows started to creep across the floor, filling the quiet house. I rose and wandered through the empty hallways. I ran my hand over the rough texture of the adobe walls. I stopped to look at the old, familiar photographs, my father wearing his characteristic cowboy hat, my mother draped in her elegant silk shawl, and Ethan as a tiny child, triumphantly riding his very first pony. In my late husband's study, lying on the smooth wooden desk, was the last letter he ever wrote me before his death. I had read it countless times. I knew every single word by heart. Asterisk Victoria, my love, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer by your side. Forgive me for leaving you to bear so much responsibility alone. Take care of the land. Take care of our son. But above all else, take exceptional care of yourself. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. You are the strongest woman I have ever known. I love you always. That night, for the first time in 15 years, I didn't weep for my deceased husband. But consider the reality. You are alone in that sprawling house, without Ethan, without any support. Wouldn't life be simpler if you were to sell it, or perhaps rent it out, or do something truly productive with the property? Something productive like what? Like transforming it into a boutique hotel or a stunning event venue. I have extensive contacts in that industry. We could create something magnificent, modern, and highly profitable. You would receive substantial profits without ever having to worry about the exhausting maintenance. And who would be responsible for managing this venture? Olivia offered a confident smile. Well, I have considerable experience in administration. We could form a simple partnership. You provide the asset, the property, and we contribute the labor and management. Shared profits and the keys. Excuse me? The keys. Who would possess those? Her smile twitched, just for a brief second. Well, obviously, we would require complete, unrestricted access to carry out the necessary renovations and to show the location to potential clients. So, you and Ethan would live there? We wouldn't necessarily reside there full-time, but we would certainly need full, unlimited use of the property. It is the only feasible way the business model can succeed. I slowly lifted my glass and took a sip of water, feeling every horrifying piece of this well-constructed puzzle lock perfectly into place. And where exactly would I reside? Wherever you choose. You could buy a lovely, comfortable apartment in New York City, something with no stairs, requiring zero upkeep. At your age, Victoria, you truly ought to be enjoying life, not exhausting yourself to death maintaining a crumbling 19th century house. At your age. 3 small words that carried immense weight. You are old. You are irrelevant. It's time to move aside. Was this proposal entirely your idea, or did Ethan suggest it too? It was a collaborative idea. Attorney Smith, the younger man with the particularly condescending smile, smoothly intervened. Ma'am, while no one is questioning your deep emotional attachment, we must remain realistic about the financials. This property currently has a market value of approximately $3 million. If it were sold, it is not for sale, I snapped. Or if it were properly managed and rented out for high-end events, it could easily generate between $30,000 and $50,000 monthly. That amounts to more than $500,000 a year. Money that could substantially benefit the entire family. I am not interested, I stated flatly. Not even for your son's future? For your future grandchildren? The word grandchildren hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stared at Olivia. She was openly smiling. She knew precisely which emotional button she had just pressed. Victoria, I'm 3 months pregnant, Olivia announced softly. Ethan is going to be a father. You are going to be a grandmother. The entire world seemed to halt, suspended in silence. What? Ethan finally spun around. His eyes were bloodshot and raw. It's true, Mom, he confirmed. That's exactly why we need to be thinking about the future, about providing for our child, about giving him stability. I didn't know, I whispered. Why haven't you wanted to know? He challenged bitterly. Why have you been so preoccupied fighting us that you haven't even realized what's happening? Tears started burning fiercely behind my eyes, but I absolutely refused to let them fall. Congratulations, son. Truly. Then you must understand, Mom. This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about my child, your grandson. And he deserves to have parents who aren't constantly stressed about money, who can afford to give him an education, opportunities, a real future. And you think I'm preventing that? You're not preventing it, no. You're just making everything much harder than it needs to be. I wept for my living son, because some forms of pain are infinitely worse than death itself. Like having to watch someone you love fundamentally transform into a stranger you no longer recognize. The keys still hung heavily around my neck, and I knew with chilling certainty that I would soon have to use them in a way I had never previously conceived. Have you ever been forced to choose between unconditional love and your own self-respect? Tell me what decision you ultimately made. Sometimes the most agonizing decisions are precisely the ones that teach us the most enduring lessons. 3 long, silent days passed without a call from Ethan. 3 days where I woke up with a hopeful jolt, half expecting to see his familiar truck cresting the rise of the dirt road. 3 days where I automatically brewed extra coffee, just in case he arrived unexpectedly. 3 days where I caught myself compulsively checking the screen of my phone every 30 minutes. On the 4th day, I concluded that my fragile pride was not worth the cost of my relationship with my son. I called him. Mom. Ethan. My voice was shaky, betraying my effort. Can we please talk? Silence. Then I heard him mumble something to someone else, to her. Sure, Mom. Tell me. Not over the phone. Come home. I'll make dinner for you. For both you and Olivia. I want us to somehow start fresh. Another stretch of silence. Then more muffled, whispered voices in the background. Olivia says she doesn't think that's a good idea. I swallowed the painful lump that had formed in my throat. Please, son. Let me try to make this right. Let me get to know her properly. Maybe I haven't been entirely fair to her. The concessionary words tasted like ash in my mouth because I knew they were insincere, but I desperately needed to say them. Really, Mom? Truly? Come tomorrow. I'll make your favorite meatloaf, the one you always loved, and apple cobbler for dessert. Ethan is genuinely worried about you. He is afraid something might happen to you being there completely alone, that you might fall down the stairs, or become ill with no one around to help. It truly is for your own well-being, Victoria. How immensely considerate of you both. Olivia either missed the razor-sharp sarcasm in my voice or simply chose to ignore it. So, what is your answer? Can we at least agree to consider the idea? Perhaps speak to an architect? Review the preliminary financial projections? No. Her smile instantly froze on her face. No, Olivia. The ranch is not for sale. It is not available for commercial ventures. It is not open to partnerships of any kind. This property is my home, and it shall remain my home until the day I choose otherwise. But Ethan is a co-owner too. Ethan legally owns 50% of the property, yes. However, I hold complete and absolute control over its utilization and administration. That is what my husband explicitly stipulated in his last will and testament. That is entirely unfair. No, it is protection. Olivia set her wine glass down with unnecessary force. Victoria, I hate to sound rude, but you're being incredibly selfish. That massive property could fundamentally change your son's life, your family's financial future, yet you cling to it as if it were more valuable than us. It is not more important. It is fundamentally different. The ranch is a legacy. You are temporary. She visibly paled at the word. Temporary? Marriages can dissolve, Olivia. Businesses can fail. Promises are often broken. But the land itself, it remains constant. I stood up decisively. I placed enough money on the table to cover the iced water I had ordered. Thank you for the invitation, but I believe we have nothing further to discuss. Victoria, wait. Give my son my best. Tell him that whenever he genuinely wishes to see me, he knows precisely where to find me. Attorney Williams, the lead lawyer, spoke again, his tone softening slightly. Mrs. Victoria, my client is still willing to reach an amicable agreement. We genuinely do not want to go to court. We don't want to make this confrontation ugly. Some documents. We have reviewed your late husband's last will and testament, and while it is accurate that you maintain administrative control of the estate, There is a specific clause that permits the co-owner to petition for the division of assets if he believes that the current management is causing the property's value to deteriorate. Deteriorating? This ranch is structurally in perfect condition, physically perhaps, but economically. He set the documents down on the coffee table. It is rapidly losing value. It generates virtually no income. It has no productive commercial use. And according to the extensive calculations we have prepared, the maintenance costs far exceed any potential financial benefit. This is my home, not merely a business venture. Legally, ma'am, it functions as both. It is a private property holding significant commercial value, and my client is entirely within his rights to insist that this intrinsic value be protected. I glanced over at Ethan. He remained standing with his back towards me, staring out the window. Ethan, was this your idea? He offered no reply. Olivia smoothly stepped in to answer for him. Victoria, Ethan genuinely only wants what is best for everyone involved, especially you. Look at this place. It's massive, quite old, and incredibly difficult to keep up. You are completely isolated here. What if you were to become ill? If you suffer a fall, if something happens to you and days pass before anyone finds you? I have a phone. I have neighbors. You are 57 years old, Victoria. And while you may be healthy now, how many more years realistically can you manage this enormous place? 5? 10? And then what is the plan? I heard his voice momentarily soften, reverting back to the tone of my own son. My boy was still in there somewhere, buried beneath all those new cold layers. All right. We'll come tomorrow around 7. Perfect. I will be waiting for you. I hung up the phone and gazed slowly around my kitchen at the old iron stove where my mother taught me to cook, the heavy clay pots inherited from my grandmother, the hand-painted tiles we had personally imported from New Orleans when we first married. Was I truly willing to capitulate? To trade my hard-won peace for his momentary presence? Yes, I was. Because that is the fundamental nature of motherhood. We bend. We often break. But we absolutely refuse to let go. I spent the entirety of the next day immersed in dinner preparation. I kneaded the dough by hand. I slow-cooked the turkey until it was impossibly tender. I dressed the dining room table with the fine embroidered tablecloth, lit the tall wax candles, and set out the antique china plates that we reserved only for the most special occasions. I dressed myself in a simple, discreet beige dress, nothing that could possibly be accused of stealing anyone's spotlight. I pinned my hair up neatly and fastened the pearl earrings my husband gave me for our 10th anniversary. The keys rested around my neck, cold and heavy, concealed safely beneath the fabric of the dress. At 10 minutes to 7, they arrived. When I saw Ethan's truck pull up and park in front of the house, my heart started to pound erratically, like a child anticipating her father's return. How utterly pathetic, I judged myself. But I was powerless to stop the feeling. I walked outside to greet them. Ethan emerged first. He wore a crisp white shirt, dark jeans, and his hair was slicked back neatly with gel. He looked undeniably handsome. But he also looked fundamentally different, like a polished actor cast to play the role of my son. I exited the restaurant, my heart hammering furiously, yet my steps were perfectly steady. I got into my car and sat for a moment, simply breathing. I reached beneath my blouse and pulled out the keys, holding them tight in my hand. They were cold, heavy, and undeniably real. In that precise moment, I knew the battle had already been joined. Only this time, I was absolutely not going to surrender. I pause here to ask, has anyone ever intentionally made you feel like you were an unwelcome obstacle in their path? How did you manage to confront that situation? That night, as I stood in the kitchen brewing a calming cup of chamomile tea, I heard the distinct rumble of a vehicle approaching on the long, dark road. It was 11 p.m. My heart leaped, instantly connecting the sound to Ethan. Perhaps he had come to talk, to apologize, to tell me that Olivia was mistaken. But when I opened the door, I recognized the silhouette of Mr. Miller's car. He climbed out quickly, clutching a thick manila envelope, wearing a look of deep concern I had never witnessed on him before. Victoria, please forgive the late hour, but you absolutely must see this immediately. What is it, Mr. Miller? We moved into the living room. He remained standing, placing the envelope carefully on the coffee table, as if it contained fragile or even dangerous material. After our discussion yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious document your husband asked me to certify years ago. I returned to the archival room in my office. I sifted through all the old, forgotten files, and I found this. He opened the manila envelope and withdrew a yellowed sheet of paper covered in my husband's familiar handwriting. It is a copy, the only copy I ever made, without his knowledge. I made it because... Are you simply going to permit this property to deteriorate until its monetary value is completely erased? Its value extends far beyond anything you are capable of understanding. Not everything in life is measured strictly in dollars and cents. Attorney Smith, the younger lawyer wearing a highly condescending smile, interjected. Ma'am, nobody here is trying to minimize your emotional attachment, but we are compelled to be realistic. This property has a current market valuation of approximately $3 million. If it were sold, it is not for sale. Or, alternatively, if it were leased for high-end events, it could generate between $30,000 and $50,000 monthly. That accumulates to more than $500,000 annually. Funds that could substantially benefit the entire family. I have absolutely no interest. Not even when considering your son's future? For your future grandchildren? The mention of grandchildren struck me with the force of a physical blow. I stared at Olivia. She was maintaining a small, self-satisfied smile. She knew precisely which emotional pressure point she had just exploited. Victoria, I am 3 months pregnant, Olivia announced softly. Ethan is going to be a father. You are going to be a grandmother. The entire world seemed to halt its rotation. What? Ethan finally wheeled around. His eyes looked bloodshot and strained. It's true, Mom. That's precisely why we need to focus on the future, on providing comprehensively for our child, on ensuring his stability. I didn't know. Why have you refused to know? Why have you been so utterly consumed by fighting with us that you haven't even noticed what is happening right in front of you? Tears began to sting fiercely behind my eyes, but I fought desperately to keep them from spilling over. Congratulations, son. Truly. Then you must understand, Mom. This is no longer just a conflict between you and me. This is fundamentally about my child, your first grandson. Olivia followed, exiting the truck in a tight, wine-colored dress, high heels, and flawlessly straight, perfect hair and impeccable makeup. She carried a designer handbag on one arm, her phone already clasped tightly in the other hand. Good evening, Victoria, she greeted me, offering a polite smile that lacked any warmth in her eyes. Olivia, thank you for coming. Please come inside. Ethan leaned in and gave me a kiss on the cheek, a swift, forced gesture. Smells amazing, Mom. It's your famous meatloaf. They stepped into the house. Olivia immediately scanned the room with the familiar expression I had come to dread, cold evaluation, as if she were mentally calculating the precise monetary worth of every piece of antique furniture, every painting, every relic of our history. How quaint, she finally pronounced. The house is 120 years old, I explained softly, closing the door behind us. My great-grandfather built it when he first acquired this land. Wow. Well, because your husband was already terribly ill when he came to see me, and there was something in his voice that convinced me this document was critically important, something you might need down the line. I accepted the sheet with hands that shook slightly. It was a handwritten letter, dated just 3 weeks before my husband's death. I began to read. Victoria, my love, if you are reading this, it means someone is trying to take the ranch from you. And if they are trying, it means my fears were justified. 2 months ago, when I visited the hospital for my final rounds of testing, I met a man in the waiting room, an older gentleman battling his own terminal illness. We struck up a conversation. He recounted his life story. He had an only son whom he had raised alone after his wife passed away, dedicating everything to him, education, morals, and the entire family inheritance. But when his son married, everything shifted. The daughter-in-law began to manipulate him incrementally. It started with sweet talk, then evolved into discussions of modernization. Eventually, She persuaded him to sign a power of attorney, assuring him it was merely to assist with the administrative processes related to his illness. The old man signed it. 2 short weeks later, his son and daughter-in-law sold his house. And he absolutely deserves to have parents who aren't perpetually stressed over finances, parents who can afford him a proper education, real opportunities, and a secure future. And you believe I am preventing that? You aren't preventing it outright. You are simply making every single aspect of this far more difficult than it needs to be. Attorney Williams resumed speaking. Mrs. Victoria, my client remains amenable to reaching a structured agreement. We genuinely prefer not to pursue litigation. We do not wish to turn this into a messy public battle. But if you fail to cooperate reasonably, we will regrettably have to petition a judge for the forced division of assets. And during that proceeding, certain details could potentially come to light, details that you might much prefer to remain private. What sort of things? Your advanced age, your isolated living condition, your staunch refusal to accept practical help. A judge could easily interpret that behavior as senile stubbornness. They could even seriously question your capacity to make sound, rational decisions. There it was, the precise threat, Mr.